Hey, Snoqualmie. So I was at the city council meeting on Monday, August 13th, and I just want to kind of let you know what's been going on with that meeting in particular because they're having another meeting on a similar issue in 2 weeks, which would be the 27th. I'll check my math on that. And I think it's really important that we as citizens kind of get involved and participate and have our voices heard before they make these decisions. So the item on the table sounds super boring, but it's called Ordinance Amending Section 17.20.040 and Section 17.35.2010. What does this mean? So essentially, so I'm going to use my cheat sheet from the meeting, but essentially what this is it's called an ordinance, let's see, to clarify building height within the downtown and Meadowbrook historic overlay zones and providing for severability and an effective date. Whew, okay, so basically what it means is that up until this point, and of course it's changed over time because things always change over time, in Snoqualmie, the height limit for buildings in the historic district alone, which is kind of just that right downtown, that Railroad Avenue strip, the building height can only be 30 feet. Okay, so what the city is proposing, and I'll get into why they're proposing it now in just a second, but what they're proposing is that they change that from 30 feet to 35 feet. Okay, no big deal, right? So the problem with this, I've got kind of three major issues with this ordinance, and mostly how it's being handled by the city. So the first one is 35 feet, no big deal, but that 35 feet actually does not include a base elevation flooding, accounting for that, underneath parking, and then also rooftop appurtenances. And there was no height limit designated on these rooftop appurtenances. So what they're basically saying is that if the building height can be 35 feet, but that is in addition to these other things. So base elevation flooding, which is based on the highest flood in the last 100 years, like plus a foot, I believe, underneath parking and rooftop appurtenances. Okay, so when you add all that together, 35 feet plus the parking plus the elevation plus the appurtenances, we're actually not sure how tall that could be, and it could be up to like 50 feet, depending on what that appurtenance looks like. And I don't know what appurtenance is either. That's one of those words that I think it means some sort of architectural cool thing, but we don't really know. Anyway, so that's my first issue, is that the language in and of itself is pretty shady and obscuring kind of the truth of what the city is wanting to allow. My first issue. Second issue is that both the guy, and sorry, I cannot remember his name, the guy who was presenting on the development proposal that's caused this, and we'll get into that in a second, as well as the city, both stated that they had no idea as to why it was 30 feet originally. Now, I find this kind of hilarious because they use the same kind of rhetoric all the time, but they actually do know because they passed it in 2001. So it's not like it's been some obscure, crazy thing that hasn't come about in forever. It's actually something that's fairly recent and that we have all the documentation on, and you can Google it and you can find it, and so I did. And the reason why was because in February 26th of 2001, the city decided that, I'm going to quote from this very boring document, and I apologize, whereas the present height limitation for residential structures is 35 feet, and whereas the combined effect of narrow lot frontages, the requirement for elevation of a first floor within a floodplain, 35-foot height limitation, and measurement of the side yard setback from the line of the eaves of a building, sorry, my handwriting's terrible, roof has been development of inappropriately towering residences out of scale with the lots upon which they are located within the floodplain. So, again, sorry for my bad handwriting, I can't read my own work. But basically saying that anything taller than 35 feet is just inappropriate. It's too big, it's too towering for the space that is there, okay? And builders have proposed the elimination of eaves in order to maximize building width on narrow lots, which would be architecturally inappropriate and inconsistent with the unique existing residential character. So there you have it. The decision to have a 30-foot building height limit was because the city felt in 2001, again, not that long ago, and around the same time that development was starting to kick off in other places in the valley, especially in Snoqualmie, right, that it was inappropriate to have tall buildings in a pretty narrow and small area down by the historic waterfront area, okay? So that's why. So my second major issue, like I said, is the fact that the city basically is lying. It's like, oh, we don't know, when really there's a whole bunch of documents from 2001 that clearly say why they were made these decisions in the past, okay? So, third issue, and this is getting to the juicy political part. Why now, right? Why is it that they're going to talk about this 35 feet that might actually be kind of like 50 feet height of buildings in this particular moment? Like, why hasn't this come up before? Like, I'm sure people wanted to develop before, so what's going on there? And what's basically happening is the city sold a lot, which has been a public parking lot since the late 90s, right, to a local business, and now a developer wants to build a taller building than what is permitted. That's the short end of it, okay? Now, I want to be totally clear because the business in question is Siglio Cellars, which is a local business, and I love them. I think they're fabulous. I love their wine. I think that they are doing great things for our community. So I have nothing against them. My issues here are entirely with how the city is handling the sale and the transparency behind development in the historic district, and especially kind of the condescension towards people who live there, which I'll get to in a second. So this lot also came up in our conversation because, like I said, it's been a public lot. It's kind of right on Railroad Avenue. It's like right across, like, you know, kitty corner from the train station, right across from the train station, and from the Bindlestick Cafe, right? So it's right there in front of Sandy Cove parking lot. It's right by Sahara's Pizza. So that's what I'm talking about, that lot there. So interestingly, one of the council members mentioned how there had been a propaganda video, which I think is incredibly strong language for a video that concerned citizens did on their own, kind of expressing concern with this lot being sold, that was put out that was claiming that the park was being sold. And so I want to clarify for everyone, the park, Sandy Cove Park, is not being sold. It's just part of the parking lot that exists there. However, and this is where I get into some more of my issues, yes, they did not sell the park. They only sold parcels of the parking lot. However, as part of the sale agreement with the developer in Siglio Cellars is that Siglio Cellars would be able to use the park for events, okay, like weddings and whatnot. Now, that's true now. Like, you could go to city council and request a permit to use the park, in theory, to privatize it. But the amount of that happening is pretty minimal, right? Because it's just a public park. And there's lots of other places to do events. However, if Siglio builds if they build a winery on that corner, that public park, there's no restrictions on that. They could be having an event every single weekend of the entire summer. Like, you could never just go take your dog down to the water anymore. So that's kind of an issue. The other part of it that was kind of interesting, and I haven't seen the building design, so I don't know for sure, but they've been talking about having sort of a rooftop portion that's kind of like a balcony that goes and extends over the public parking space that would look over the park, which seems to me kind of a weird, shifty way to kind of claim public space with a private building. So, anyway, I'm getting a little bit off track here, but my major points are just that the proposal is saying that it is going to be 35 feet, well, but really it's going to be 35 feet plus underground parking, plus base flood elevation, and plus appurtenances, okay? The second thing is that 2001 decided against allowing 35-foot buildings precisely because they thought that it was inappropriate for the historic nature of downtown, okay? And third, this is being proposed right now because a developer wants to build and develop a building that does not fall within city requirements on what has become a public parking lot that is public space. So as a community, we are losing a public, regardless of what it was before, how it's zoned, whatever, that space has become one that we use for public parking and also for public events. And so we're losing that, okay? So the arguments for this development, real quick, are that mostly from council members Lassie and Sundwell, were that parking is a myth in downtown. It's pretty easy to park there. There's enough parking. That development will trigger more development, and we want to invest in a failing downtown. And that this will help struggling businesses, this new development. Because if we add to the building height, more people will want to come in and build buildings, essentially, and that's going to help our economy. That's what they're arguing. So here's my problems with those really quick, and then I'll be done, because I know I'm at the 10-minute mark, and nobody likes to watch things longer than 10 minutes. So Councilmember Sunwell basically argued that parking is a myth in downtown because, and he told us this great anecdote about how he went downtown on the busiest weekend in the summer, which is Thomas the Train, and he counted all the parking spaces, and there were plenty of parking. He had all the numbers and everything. So here's the thing, though. Sorry, Councilmember Sunwell, but your one experience in downtown Snoqualmie on a weekend, first of all, proves that you are not a member of that community. If you've never been there on a weekend, except for the one time you go to check parking places, you're not part of that community. So why do you have a voice in that? Secondly, the fact that, again, your one experience is going to give you the confidence to state that all of the business owners and people who live in that community are not telling the truth. That's craziness. If someone lives down there and they are telling you that the parking is an issue, I'm sorry, but you gotta take them for face value. They experience it every single day of their life. You experienced it one weekend, okay? So there's that. Secondly, again, regardless of intent and business or whatever, and regardless of what that lot was before, it has become a public meeting place. It has become a place we use for concerts and a place that we use for parking. And so we don't want to lose that public space to a private entity. Thirdly, this thing about businesses struggling, this historic Snoqualmie downtown is not struggling. They're thriving. Business is great down there. So there's this crazy myth going around that somehow we need to help developers invest. But the truth is that, like, we don't need to invest. It's already doing really well. We just need to support that, okay? And then the final thing is that, I mean, I'm sorry, but historic downtown, like 2001, they decided that it was, you know, out of character to allow for larger buildings. And I mean, you can have your own opinions about it, but frankly, I agree. I think that historic downtown should stay like a historic downtown. We don't need to have towering buildings, and we definitely don't need anything that's kind of modern looking or with appurtenances, whatever that means. So anyway, that's my little bit. If you want to get involved, there's a couple ways to do that. First of all, you should show up to the city council meeting if you're a member of Snoqualmie, and you can absolutely make your comments public and kind of give pressure to your representatives in that manner. Like I said, it's on the 27th at 7 p.m. And then the other way you can do that, if you're unable to come to the meeting, or if you want to kind of just give your voice a little bit more in the written form, you can email your council members at councilmembers@ci.snoqualmie.wa.us, and I will post that here too. Thank you for listening. Have a good day.